A former world champion just told a podcast he is walking away from the fastest bike he has ever ridden. Jorge Martin, the 2024 champion, confirmed he is leaving Aprilia for Yamaha in 2027. Not a broken Aprilia, a race-winning one. And he is going to a Yamaha stuck at the back of the conversation. Everyone assumed they knew why. The injuries. The teammate he collected in the crash that broke his collarbone. The contract war that nearly went to court. Then Martin sat down on the Gypsy Tales podcast and gave a reason nobody in the paddock had on their card. So why does a champion quit a winner? And why bet his prime on a bike that loses? This is bigger than a transfer. Martin is not a free agent chasing money. He is a former world champion choosing on purpose to leave the manufacturer that went to war to keep him. Aprilia did not let him walk in 2025. They forced him to stay. So when that same rider says he is leaving the instant his deal allows, the question is not whether he is unhappy. It is what he sees coming that the rest of the grid does not. Because nobody trades a race-winning seat for a losing one on a whim. They do it on a read. To get why this matters, go back to the war he just escaped. Martin signed with Aprilia for 2025 on a 2-year deal and almost immediately tried to break it. There was a clause. If he was not in title contention after the early rounds, he could leave. On paper, he qualified. In reality, it was a trap, because the only reason he was not in contention was that he had barely ridden. By the time the clause was judged, he had started a single Grand Prix. Aprilia's answer was cold. The clause was invalid, they argued, precisely because the injuries that triggered it meant he never raced. Then Dorna ended it. Carmelo Ezpeleta, the man who runs the championship, made the rider's position impossible. Dorna, he warned, would not register any rider for the championship while a contract fight sat unresolved. No formal settlement, no grid slot, anywhere, not even at a rival team. Martin folded and stayed for 2026. So why, 1 year later, is he leaving again? And this time, Aprilia is letting him go without a fight. Start with the story everyone accepts, because it is real. 2025 nearly ended Martin before it began. He broke bones in pre-season testing. He returned, and at Qatar, he was collected at speed and left with 11 fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. He returned again. And in Japan, he tangled with his own teammate, Marco Bezzecchi, and broke his collarbone. 4 major injuries in 1 season for a man who had just been champion. By his own admission, he began to doubt he could ride at that level again. And that doubt is the exact thing everyone misreads. Because the doubt did not push him to play safe. It changed his timeline. On the podcast, Martin described the moment he stopped chasing the immediate fight and started playing a longer one. He said he wanted to think long-term, to have his own time, with no pressure. Hear that as a wounded rider lowering his sights, and you hear it wrong. He was not lowering the target. He was moving it, deciding which season he actually wanted to win, and it was not this one. And there is one more part of this. The piece he almost tossed off in passing. 2 years ago, long before the injuries, Martin says he studied the 2027 rulebook and reached a private verdict. He called it the year of the Japanese. Since I heard about the regulations, he added, I always think about it. Sit with that. The reason he is leaving was not written in a hospital bed in 2025. It was written in a rule document years before. The injuries did not cause this. They just cleared his calendar to act on it. So what did he see? In 2027, MotoGP burns down its own formula. Engines drop from 1000cc to 850cc. Aero gets slashed. Ride height devices, the launch and corner trickery the European factories mastered, get banned outright. The maximum cylinder bore shrinks from 81mm to 75. The front fairing loses width, and the rear aero gets pulled under homologation. Locked in with only one update allowed all year. Less power, less downforce, far more riding on raw corner speed. That is not a tweak. It is a reset back toward the exact corner speed philosophy Yamaha and Honda built their dynasties on. Pedro Acosta has already said the new bikes will be faster through corners despite losing power. Martin ran that math 2 years sooner. And here is the twist that proves how serious he is. Aprilia is now refusing to let Martin test their own 2027 prototype, handing it to Bezzecchi instead. The champion who bet everything on the new rules cannot get near the new bike at his current team. He did not just pick a side, he has already been locked out of the other one. This is where it flips. Everyone framed this as Martin running away, from the injuries, from the teammate he collected in the crash that broke his collarbone, from a management group he fought in public. But running away is reactive. And what Martin did is the opposite. He studied a rulebook before his rivals took it seriously and positioned himself to be on the right bike the moment the right bike changes. Look at the pattern. Martin won his title on a Ducati at the peak of this era, when European bikes and their aero ruled everything. He did not cling to it. The instant he saw the rules that would end that era, he began planning his exit from it. This was never about which bike is fastest today. It is about which philosophy wins the day the rules reset. People thought Martin was choosing a worse motorcycle. He was choosing a different calendar. That is not fear. That is a champion front-running the entire grid. And see what it costs the others. Yamaha does not just sign a rider. It signs a world champion who chose them while they were losing, which means he believes the losing is temporary. Aprilia does not just lose a rider. It loses the one man on its bikes who studied the future and decided it belonged to someone else. After fighting to keep him with Dorna's backing, Aprilia now has to watch its own champion call their 2027 project the wrong bet, in public, with his career on the line. So let us be honest about what this is. Martin has not made an emotional choice. He has made a cold one, and earlier than anyone else dared. If his read is right, the math is brutal for the grid. He spends his first season on a Yamaha nobody fears as the rules swing the sport back toward Japanese strengths. While he is already embedded, already adapted, already the lead name in the project. He reaches the new era a full year ahead of every rider who waited for proof, but a cold red cuts both ways. If 2027 does not hand it back to Yamaha, if the Europeans adapt faster than he expects, Martin will have walked away from a winning bike in his prime for a theory. There is no safe version of this bet. He has wagered the back half of his career on a single line in a rulebook. So the real question was never why Martin is leaving Aprilia, it is whether he just read the future better than the people who write the rules. Did he outthink the entire grid, or talk himself out of the best bike he will ever ride? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.